Okay, hello everyone. I am here. I made it. I did it. Let's turn this down a little bit. That should work. Right? That works. And where am I? That's the question. Aha! Hello! It's another day. And Lamia, good to see ya. Heretic Trance, Noctis Silence, Demon Quiller, Ravenstar, Iron Chef Lord, Xbox Aaron, and Kragar. A pistachio waving howdy to you all. Do you all like pistachios? I mean, in ice cream form or as per the nut? Are you all fans of pistachios? Kragar's here for it. All right, good. And Heretic Trance, #1 on the leaderboard. The spring equinox will be soon, and that's when I'm looking for the top 20 experience point holders to give a gift to. Underrated ice cream flavor, says Kragar. Hi, Sierra. Sierra is not too far behind Heretic. Yeah, hi. All right. So, a couple things. And then we have some reading to do, everyone. We have some reading to do. First off, a quick preview of the new emotes. Not final form yet, but pretty close. You ready? If you blink, you're going to miss them. I'm only going to keep them up on screen for a little bit, okay? Hi, Lucius. How you doing? I guess this is the ultimate boomer juice. It's just water. It's just water. I am not sponsored by water. You are correct, Heretic. Not sponsored by water. All right, we'll do a quick flip back through the emotes. Very good. Now, I'll keep this up here to encourage you all to look into the world of Dragonlance. And we will... we'll begin in just a little bit. I wanted to go over one more thing. One more thing. Sierra, no. I can check again. If you hang on, I can check again to see if anything ended up restocking past midweek. Getting stuff in to get ready for the weekend orders so that they come in early in the week for stores to replenish. If you give me a second, in another browser, because y'all don't need to see the boring stuff like the distributor ordering page. Where's my let's see. We're doing this live, everyone. Ooh. Wait, no, is that can ship 0? No, wait. Is that in stock? And is it in stock in the Midwest warehouse? Dungeons & Dragons RPG Dungeon Master's Guide Premium book cover. Okay, that's a book cover. That's a nice book cover. Dungeon Master's Screen, Dungeon Master's Guide hardcover. Dungeon Master's Screen, book tabs, Dungeon Master's Guide. No alt cover. The best I can do for you here. The best I can do for you, Sierra, is Ultra Pro makes a premium book cover. Oh, wait, you said Monster Manual, not Dungeon Master's Guide. Hang on. There's also a Monster Manual premium cover. What do you look like? Alternate hardcover is not currently in stock. And let me see if there's any spare. We have spare ones. They'd be probably in the back room. If you're curious about the premium cover for this, though, there's the Monster Manual. And that's the Dungeon Master's Guide, so you can imagine the Player's Handbook one would be red. Let's open up and see if anyone added notes to hold on to something. Or if someone hasn't picked one up and therefore relinquished the book. They didn't sell any online because it's tagged for in-store sale only. I don't see any currently. I'll talk to him again, and I don't know. I'll see what might be going on here. Invoice history. Hi, Capo. Did it work? If it did, then there should be...
Ion.
Stormbender, thank you very much. Yeah, I'll have to go to the physical store for you, Sierra, and see what's going on, because I'm not finding anything over on the invoice. So you're looking for something that's called what Blink? That's off to the side. I don't see a what blink that's been added. Wand, wait what, wine time, we smart, wan. Whoa, sugar plum bubble yum. Hello. It has been approximately a minute, my friend. How have you been doing? Let's go to viewer rewards, power-ups, and channel points. Manage. So that one is on. Enter a link to a Better TTV emote from betterttv.com. Only emotes with sharing turned on are supported. Could that be the case? Is that an emote that doesn't have sharing turned on? Or did you not put the link in? It's like there's not a redemption in queue. I think it's about 2 years since I was active often. Been doing pretty terrible, but glad to hear your voice again. Well, you're going to hear a lot more of it, Sugar Plum, because I'm reading through the Dragonlance Chronicles with you all, and I'm doing silly voices along with it. I'm sorry to hear things have been rough for you. Hopefully, look, there's been a lot of that going around over the past 4 years, Sugar Plum. Things have been pretty terrible and on managed decline. I'm hoping that we will have better times ahead. Hey, Killer Gamer, good to see you. Welcome, welcome. Yeah, Capo, I don't know. Again, I don't know if it if you put in the web address of an emote, or how that worked. Yeah, like Heretic Trance. But all right, so here we see Papa has been added to chat. So it did time out Heretic, but there that did have a web address to it, and so hers worked, Capo. Yours didn't. Maybe you didn't put in an address for it. I got you, Killer Gamer. Well, my dulcet tones will help put you to sleep, I'm sure. All right, Sugar Plum. I said hi. It's been a minute. Welcome. Good to see you. I'm sorry things have been bad. The last 4 years have been managed decline for a lot of people. It's pretty terrible, and let's hope to have better years ahead of us. And that you said it was good to hear my voice again, and I said, well, you better get used to it, because we're going to be reading the Dragonlance Chronicles. And I'm doing silly voices. Yeah, see, there's Papa right there. Yep, you're fine, Sugar Plum. All right, well then, let's go here. Remember, y'all, you can, there's so much to the world of Kryn and to Dragonlance. You know, obviously, hey, support the authors, get the book. This is some good, this is some good fantasy reading. Whether you like all of it, some of it, none of it, it's something good to read, and you can connect with a lot of other people because of that. All right, as long as the background music is not overpowering my voice, please let me know if it is. Why don't we jump back into the book? And I will do my best to remember. I'll do my best to remember the voices I was using last time. Where we left off was part 3, Night of Solamnia, the old man's party. Raceland leaned forward. He and Kara. Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry. One more thing I forgot to bring up because I was talking about the other stuff here. Real quick. I'm sorry, everyone. We'll get back to Raceland. I need your all's help. I am 2 boosts away. I'm 2 boosts away from having the server back up to a tier 3. I would sincerely appreciate it if you all have Discord Nitro boosts to direct over to the channel, that you would do so. We're just 2 away, and I could really use that support. You would become a booster, you would get access to epic heroes, and that also makes you a golden goblin, meaning that every season there's a fun prize that awaits a golden goblin and someone who's a top 20 experience points holder. And then, of course, access to epic heroes. Bardic Media is it is not NSFW, though it is not restricted to PG-13 at most, like the normal memes channel. And verbal components is also a little bit more relaxed chat, not NSFW. You'll see that there may be locks here, but these are not the triangle of warning that you have to be 18 plus. And then I moved a couple things around. I put Adopt-a-thon under Welcome and News. We're over a quarter of the way there. I have lots of minis that need to go. This month, they have to get out of the second office. Please help me move them. You're getting them at below cost. I will pack a neat box full of minis for you and ship them out. You're buying them at below what I pay from a distributor. And if you have enough minis for yourself, you want to support the channel, you can direct me to give that box to someone else. And also, every entry here... Aw, thank you. Thank you, Jacance. Every box comes with an entry to win a $400 pre-painted Gargantuan Tiamat. So, when all 100 sell, I will roll a D100, and we'll see who wins the Tiamat. Well, Heretic, thank you. All right, so yep, directing boosts over here, and in fact, let me check something real quick. Yeah. Okay. So if you click on this up here, there's a menu, and you can direct the boosts you have. If you're in a server that might already achieve the goal that they're setting out for, and if there's not some other reward, and I'm not going to convince you to not support another streamer or community, please do. If you have 1 or 2 to spare, you click on that boost level, and you can redirect your boost over to this server. There's extras that can be purchased, but I would much rather you, for 25, get a box of minis than to spend extra out of your wallet to boost here. But you can buy more. You get 2 with a Nitro sub. So if you're not using it, sort of like your Amazon Prime. If you have Amazon Prime, and so far this month you haven't directed it to a channel, hey, I'd love to earn that sub. Sorry, hiccup. You have to specifically direct the Amazon Prime sub every month to a channel. If you don't, it falls off. But you can just keep using that free sub you get through Amazon Prime. And if you haven't, hey, throw it this way, please. I'm really trying to get this channel. This is the season. Like, the seeds have been planted. We had a late frost, so they haven't germinated just yet. I want this to be a year of growth. I'm going to do some really fun and incredible things. I have some new gadgets that I will be that I will be using to go flying with you all. We'll go on some field trips if I can. There's a lot I want to do with you all, including, hey, I've never really just sat back and read with you all. So let's give it a go. Jacance, thank you so much. That support goes a long way. Sugar Plum says you have to reset it every month. I can see if I have one available. I have if I have the spoons. Everyone has spoons here. Yeah. If you set your Amazon Prime, you have to direct it to a channel. I don't think it would take many spoons to do. I'm not you, but it should just be a click over to use your Amazon Prime. So if you can do it, hey, Sugar Plum, I know you were gifted one. You might be able to use it to continue it or support another streamer that you know with it. But they do have to be directed. It will not auto. Auto renew. Your Prime sub does not auto renew. You have to be vigilant over it. So that's why you have a lot of streamers, and it's something that I should do more for the reminder, right, Jacance? I should remind you all, hey, you use Prime. You have a free monthly sub you can throw it at someone. Support someone here on the platform. I would greatly enjoy that someone being me, but don't leave that money on the table if you're paying for that Prime subscription. I guess since there's a couple of you here, real quick as well. Uh-oh. Heretic Trance. The bot gotcha. Well, go make some dumplings and enjoy. Real quick, for those of you who just came in late, there's some new emotes that are going to be brought up. Once they finish being like final approval line art and being colored in, you're going to be getting 16 new emotes, everyone, to go along with the others that are already here. Yep, so there's a lot here. Jacance, how has No Man been? I don't think I've been able to catch her streaming in a little while. How's she been doing? All right, now after shilling the channel and the server to you all, commercial break is over. Let's start reading and listening to some voices. Raceland leaned forward. He and Caramon exchanged glances as thoughts passed wordlessly between them. It was a rare moment, for only a great personal difficulty or danger ever made the twins' close kinship apparent. Kitiara was their older half-sister. The party is getting together. In brief, we had a brief history of the world that brought along the cataclysm. Fast forward 3,000 years, and now we're in a small treetop town of Solace, and a group of friends is getting together after 5 years, as they've been exploring some false priests and people who have been trying to take advantage of others in this world that has lost faith and Things are going on. I think No Man is doing all right. She had a fundraiser yesterday for charity and Red Chuck Tingle. A lot of fun. I really like No Man and want to support and promote them. Thank you for asking. Yeah. I'm glad you had fun. It'd be nice if I can catch your streaming sometime, but I did not have the opportunity. Sireko says, Ball Python is more like a cat every day. Spend money on cork bark hides. She prefers a tissue puff. Pardon me. Sorry about that, everyone. So the party's together, and the one who couldn't make it is Kitiara. And we're going to explore who Kitiara is and why perhaps she can't make it to the party, to the reunion. Kitiara would not break her oath unless another, stronger oath bound her. Raceland spoke their thoughts aloud. What does she say? Caramon asked. Tannis hesitated, then licked his dry lips. Her duties with her new lord keep her busy. She sends her regrets and best wishes to all of us, and her love. Tannis felt his throat constrict. He coughed. her love to her brothers and to... He paused, then rolled up the parchment. That's all. Love to who? Tasselhoff asked brightly. Ouch! He glared at Flint, who had trod upon his foot. The Kender saw Tannis flush. Oh, he said, feeling stupid. Do you know who he means? Tannis asked the brothers. What new lord does she talk about? Who knows with Kitiara? Raceland shrugged his thin shoulders. The last time we saw her was here, in the inn, 5 years ago. She was going north with Sturm. We have not heard from her since. As for the new lord, I'd say we now know why she broke her oath to us. She has sworn allegiance to another. She is, after all, a mercenary. Yes, Tannis admitted. He slipped the scroll back into its case and looked up at Tika. You say this arrived under strange circumstances. Tell me. A man brought it in, late this morning. At least I think it was a man, Tika shivered. He was wrapped head to foot in clothing of every description. I couldn't even see his face. His voice was hissing-like, and he spoke with a strange accent. Deliver this to Tannis Half-Elven, he said. I told him you weren't here and hadn't been here for several years. He will be, the man said. Then he left. Tika shrugged. Boy, I was trying to do a voice in a voice. That's all I can tell you. The old man over there saw him. She gestured to an old man sitting in a chair before the fire. You might ask him if he noticed anything. I've noticed anything else. Tannis turned to look at an old man who was telling stories to a dreamy-eyed child staring into the flame. Flint touched his arm. Here comes one who can tell you more, the dwarf said. Sturm! Tannis said warmly, turning toward the door. Everyone except Raceland turned. The mage relapsed into the shadows once more. At the door stood a straight-backed figure dressed in full plate armor and chainmail, the symbol of the Order of the Rose on the breastplate. A great many people in the inn turned to stare, scowling. The man was a Solamnic knight. The Knights of Solamnia had fallen into ill repute up north. Rumors of their corruption had spread even this far south. The few who recognized Sturm as a longtime former resident of Solace shrugged and turned back to their drinking. Those who did not continued to stare. In these days of peace, it was unusual enough to see a knight in full armor enter the inn, but it was still more unusual to see a knight in full armor that dated back practically to the Cataclysm. Sturm received the stares as accolades due his rank. He carefully smoothed his great thick mustaches, which, being the ages-old symbol of the knights, were as obsolete as his armor. He bore the trappings of the Solamnic knights with unquestioned pride, and he had the sword arm and the skill to defend that pride. Although people in the inn stared, no one, after one look at the knight's calm, cold eyes, dared snicker or make a derogatory comment. The knight held the door open for a tall man and woman heavily cloaked in furs. The woman must have spoken a word of thanks to Sturm, for he bowed to her in a courtly, old-fashioned manner, long dead in the modern world. "Look at that!" Caramon shook his head in admiration. "The gallant knight helps the lady fair. I wonder where he dragged up those two." "They're barbarians from the plains," said Taz, standing on a chair, waving his arms to a friend. "That's the dress of the Quayshu tribe." Apparently, the two plainsmen declined any offer Sturm made, for the knight bowed again and left them. He walked across the crowded inn with a proud and noble air, such as he might have worn walking forward to be knighted by the king. Tanis rose to his feet. Sturm came to him first and threw his arms around his friend. Tanis gripped him tightly, feeling the knight's strong, sinewy arms clasp in affection. Then the two stood back to look at each other for a brief moment. Sturm hasn't changed, Tanis thought, except that there are more lines around his sad eyes, more gray in the brown hair. The cloak is a little more frayed. There are a few more dents in the ancient armor, but the knight's flowing mustaches, his pride and joy, were as long and sweeping as ever. His shield was polished just as brightly. His brown eyes were just as warm. He saw his friend. "Then you have a beard," Sturm said with amusement. I might be a little too wizened. "And you?" Because I have the deeper voice. I'm using a deeper voice, like kind of Russian-y accent for Caramon. "It's good to see you again." And then we have for Raceland that kind of strained, raspy voice. Tasselhoff Burfoot is a lighter voice. He is a smaller guy. I'm playing Flint as not the Scottish dwarven accent. Nah, not this time. Flint this time is more, I don't know, sort of Western prospector. More of like a Western prospector, old-timey West. Tanis is, I don't know, generic me voice. Tika is slightly raised voice. I don't think making her sound like a high school cheerleader or something. Oh my god, the tables were totally not like that before. Can you even believe it? Like, guys, how long has it been? Like, I don't know, totally 5 years? OMG. I can't do Tika like that. Come on now. I don't think you need to change accounts, Sugar Plum. You were gifted a sub, so it may not be available for you to use on this channel. So you would want to direct it to another streamer this month, and you could try it again. You could try it again next month. But because you had received a gift sub earlier, it may have taken that option away from you. In this channel, not in another person's channel. What would Sturm? Because Sturm's not especially ancient. Is he? Oh, can I do something like a Patrick Warburton? Kind of a... Tannis. Tannis. It's been so long. Not that's a little well, I guess he is. He carries himself in the old way. So maybe something a little bit more back of the throat like that. Let's see. What would he say while holding the door open to the plainsman? No, please. After you. Yeah, so I guess more of like a tense, slightly tense face, talking a little bit more out of the back of the throat. Dennis, yes, and oh, yes, miss. Oh well, good to see you, friends. I think we'll do that for Sturm. If I have a better or you have a suggestion, let me know. I am one man with one voice that I can only squeeze in so many directions. I'll do the best I can. Oh, that could be Sugar Plum. So let's try this again. His mustaches, his pride and joy, were as long and sweeping as ever. His shield was polished just as brightly. His brown eyes were just as warm when he saw his friend. And you have a beard, Sturm said with amusement. Yeah, so like a little pressured voice, but not ancient. Oh, I'm the old man sitting in front of the fire. Then the knight turned to greet Caramon and Flint. Hasselhoff dashed off after more ale, Ika having been called away to serve others in the growing crowd. Greetings, knight, whispered Raceland from his corner. Sturm's face grew solemn as he turned to greet the other twin. Raceland, he said. The mage drew back his hood, letting the light fall on his face. Sturm was too well bred to let his astonishment show beyond a slight exclamation, but his eyes widened. Tannis realized the young mage was getting a cynical pleasure out of seeing his friends discomforted. Can I ask you something, Raceland? Tannis asked. No, thank you, the mage answered, moving into the shadows once again. Or, I'm sorry, not can I ask you, can I get you something, Raceland? Sorry. I have to move into the light in order to read better. No, thank you, the mage answered, moving into the shadows once again. He eats practically nothing, Caramon said in a worried tone. I think he lives on air. Some plants live on air, Hasselhoff stated, returning with Sturm's ale. I've seen them. They hover off the ground. Their roots suck food and water out of the atmosphere. Really? Caramon's eyes were wide. I don't know who's a greater idiot, said Flint in disgust. Well, we're all here. What news? Oh? Sturm looked at Tanis questioningly. Kitiara? Kitiara. Kitiara. Maybe it's a little tense to the side. Kitiara. All? Kitiara? Not coming, Tanis replied steadily. We were hoping perhaps you could tell us something. Not I. The knight frowned. We traveled north together and parted soon after crossing the sea narrows into Old Salamnia. She was, going to look up relatives of her father, she said. That was the last I saw of him. So, the more lines he gets, I'll work on it. It'll smooth out. Well, I suppose that's that, Tanis laughed. What of your relatives, Sturm? Did you find your father? Sturm began to talk, but Tanis only half listened to Sturm's tale of his travels in his ancestral land of Salamnia. Tanis's thoughts were on Kitiara. Of all his friends, she had been the one he most longed to see. After 5 years of trying to get her dark eyes and crooked smile out of his mind, he discovered that his longing for her grew daily. Wild, impetuous, hot-tempered, the swordswoman was everything Tanis was not. She was also human, and love between human and elf always ended in tragedy. Yet Tanis could no more get Kitiara out of his heart than he could get his human half out of his blood. Wrenching his mind free of memories, he began listening to Sturm. I heard rumors. Some say my father is dead. Some say he's alive. His face darkened. But no one knows where he is. Your inheritance? Caramon asked. Sturm smiled, a melancholy smile that softened the lines in his proud face. I wear it, he replied simply. My armor and my weapon. Tanis looked down to see the knight wore a splendid, if old-fashioned, two-handed sword. Caramon stood up to peer over the table. That's a beauty, he said. They don't make 'em like that these days. My sword broke in a fight with an ogre. Theros Ironfeld put a new blade on it today, but it cost me dearly. Two-handed sword. Caramon stood up to peer over the table. That's a beauty, he said. Oh wait, no, I'm sorry. I went back up. Two-handed sword. Or wait, did I just mix up? Oh, I mixed up the voices. Sorry, I got ahead of myself. I'm so busy trying to think of Sturm's accent, I distracted. Alright. Let's rewind. Tanis looked down to see that the knight wore a splendid, if old-fashioned, two-handed sword. Caramon stood up to peer over the table. That's a beauty, he said. They don't make them like that these days. My sword broke in a fight with an ogre. Theros Ironfeld put a new blade on it today, but it cost me dearly. So, you're a knight now? Sturm's smile vanished. Ignoring the question, he caressed the hilt of his sword lovingly. According to the legend, this sword will break only if I do, he said. It was all that was left of my father's. Suddenly, Tass, who hadn't been listening, interrupted. Who are those people? The Kender asked in a shrill whisper. Tanis looked up as the two barbarians walked past their table, heading for empty chairs that sat in the shadows of a corner near the fire pit. The man was the tallest man Tanis had ever seen. Caramon, at 6 feet, would come only to this man's shoulder. but Karaman's chest was probably twice as big around, his arms 3 times as big. Although the man was bundled with the furs barbarian tribesmen lived in, it was obvious that he was thin for his great height. His face, though dark skinned, had the pale cast of one who has been ill or suffered greatly. His companion, the woman Sturm had bowed to, was so muffled in a fur trimmed cape and hood that it was difficult to tell much about her. Neither she nor her tall escort glanced at Sturm as they passed. The woman carried a plain staff trimmed with leathers in barbaric fashion. The man carried a well worn knapsack. They sat down in the chairs, huddled in their cloaks, and talked together in low voices. I found him, wandering around on the road outside of town, Sturm said. The woman appeared near exhaustion. The man just as bad. I brought them here. Told them they could get food and rest for the night. They are proud people and would have refused my help. But they were lost and tired, and I think for Sturm, it's that over enunciation. Very deliberate. He's a very deliberate person. I will use a very deliberate pronunciation, overly animating my mouth when he speaks. Sturm lowered his voice. There are things on the road these days that it is better not to face in the dark. We met some of them, asking about a staff, Tana said grimly. He described their encounter with Viewmaster Toad. Although Sturm smiled at the description of the battle, he shook his head. A seeker guard questioned me about a staff outside, he said. Or wait, no, that was Sturm, I'm sorry. Although Sturm smiled at the description of the battle, he shook his head. A seeker guard questioned me about a staff outside, he said. Blue crystal, was it? Blue crystal, was it? Karaman nodded and put his hand on his brother's thin arm. One of the slimy guards stopped us, the warrior said. They were going to impound Ray's staff, if you'll believe that. For further investigation, they said. I rattled my sword at them, and they thought better of the motion. Raceland moved his arm from his brother's touch, a scornful smile on his lips. What would have happened if they had taken your staff? Tanis asked. The mage looked at him from the shadows of his hood, his golden eyes gleaming. They would have died horribly, the mage whispered, and not by my brother's sword. The half-elf felt chilled. The mage's softly spoken words were more frightening than his brother's bravado. Wonder what's so important about a blue crystal staff that goblins would kill to get it, Tanis mused. There are rumors of worse to come, Sturm said quietly. His friends moved closer to hear him. Armies are gathering in the north. Armies of strange creatures. Not human. There's talk of war. But what? Who? Tanis asked. I've heard the same. And so have I, Garamon added. In fact, I heard. As the conversation continued, Hasselhoff yawned and turned away. Easily bored, the Kender looked around the inn for some new amusement. His eyes went to the old man, still spinning tales for the child by the fire. The old man had a larger audience now. The 2 barbarians were listening, Tass noted. Then his jaw dropped. The woman had thrown her hood back, and the firelight shone on her face and hair. The Kender stared in admiration. The woman's face was like the face of a marble statue. Classic. Pure. Whole. But it was her hair that captured the Kender's attention. Cass had never before seen such hair, especially on the plainsmen, who are usually dark-haired and dark-skinned. No jeweler spinning molten strands of silver and gold could have created the effect of this woman's silver gold hair shining in the firelight. One other person listened to the old man. This was a man dressed in the rich brown and golden robes of a seeker. He sat at a small round table drinking mulled wine. Several mugs stood empty before him, and even as the Kender watched, he called sourly for another. "That's Hederick," Tika whispered as she passed the companion's table. "The High Theocrat." The man called out again, glaring at Tika. She bustled quickly over to help him. He snarled at her, mentioning poor service. She seemed to start to answer sharply, then bit her lip and kept silent. The old man came to an end of his tale. The boy sighed. "Are all your stories of the ancient gods true, old one?" he asked curiously. Hasselhoff saw Hedrick frown. The Kender hoped he wouldn't bother the old man. Cass touched Tanis's arm to catch his attention, nodding his head toward the seeker with a look that meant there might be trouble. The friends turned. All were immediately overwhelmed by the beauty of the plainswoman. They stared in silence. The old man's voice carried clearly over the drone of the other conversation in the common room. "Indeed, my stories are true, child." The old man looked directly at the woman and her tall escort. "Ask these two. They carry such stories in their hearts." "Do you?" The boy turned to the woman eagerly. "Can you tell me a story?" The woman shrank back into the shadows, her face filled with alarm as she noticed Tanis and his friend staring at her. The man drew her near protectively, his hands reaching for his weapon. He glowered at the group, especially the heavily armed warrior, Karaman. "Nervous bastard," Karaman commented, his hand straying to his own sword. "But I can understand why," Sturm said. "Guarding such a treasure. He is her bodyguard, by the way. I gathered from their conversation that she's some kind of royal person in their tribe. Though I imagine from the looks they exchange that their relationship goes a bit deeper than that." The woman raised her hand in a gesture of protest. "I'm sorry." The friends had to strain to hear her low voice. "I am not a teller of tales. I have not the art." So where Tika is a little bit of a raised voice for me, if she has this, like she is smooth, she is milk chocolate, right? We have we just have this like everything about her warm, very like amber earth tones, very her hair is stark, but it's these beautiful precious minerals of the land, right? So I want to give her. I'll try giving her something like not like a slinky, like flirty voice, but something kind of a smoky voice, an earthy voice, not a I guess I guess just that, right? Earthy, smoky, kind of she's not gruff and she's not Marge Simpson. Um, I don't know. Let's see how it develops. The story will dictate that, right? "I'm sorry." The friends had to strain to hear her low voice. "I'm not a teller of tales. I have not the art. She spoke the common tongue, her accent thick. The child's eager face filled with disappointment. The old man patted him on the back, then looked directly into the woman's eyes. You may not be a teller of tales, he said pleasantly, but you are a singer of songs, aren't you, chieftain's daughter? Sing the child your song, Gold Moon. You know the one. From out of nowhere, apparently a lute in the old man's hand. Or out of nowhere, apparently, a lute appeared in the old man's hands. He gave it to the woman, who stared at him in fear and astonishment. How do you know me, sir? She asked. That's not important, the old man smiled gently. Sing for us, chieftain's daughter. The woman took the lute with hands that trembled visibly. Her companion seemed to make a whispered protest, but she did not hear him. Her eyes were held fast by the glittering black eyes of the old man. Slowly, as if in a trance, she began to strum, not sturm, she began to strum the lute. As the melancholy chords drifted through the common room, conversation ceased. Soon, everyone was watching her, but she did not notice. Gold Moon sang for the old man alone. Well, let's see if I can. Hi, Derek. Derek, it's story time. You're welcome to lurk. Well, I don't know how the song is supposed to go, but I will do my best. This is very good. So, doing something like this, even if you're not reading to an audience, this is excellent to help exercise your narrative skills as a storyteller, DM, GM, ST, castle keeper. There's all sorts of monikers for folks here. The grasslands are endless, and summer sings on. Old Moon the princess loves a poor man's son. Her father, the chieftain, makes long roads between them. The grasslands are endless, and summer sings on. The grasslands are waving, the sky's rim is gray. The chieftain sends river wind east and away to search for strong magic at the lip of the morning. The grasslands are waving, the sky's rim is gray. O river wind, where have you gone? O river wind, autumn comes on. I sit by the river and look to the sunrise. But the sunrise is over the mountains alone. The grasslands are fading, the summer wind dies. He comes back, the darkness of stone in his eyes. He carries a blue staff as bright as a glacier. The grasslands are fading, the summer wind dies. The grasslands are fragile, as yellow as flame. The chieftain makes mockery of river wind's claim. He orders the people to stone the young warrior. The grasslands are fragile, as yellow as flame. The grassland has faded, and autumn is here. The girl joins her lover, the stones whistle near. The staff flares in blue light, and both of them vanish. The grasslands are faded, and autumn is here. There was a heavy silence in the room as her hand struck the final chord. Taking a deep breath, she handed the lute back to the old man and withdrew into the shadows once more. Thank you, my dear, the old man said, smiling. Now can I have a story? The little boy asked wistfully. Of course, the old man answered, settled back in his chair. Once upon a time, the great god Paladine. Paladine? The child interrupted. I've never heard of a god named Paladine. A snorting sound came from the high theocrat sitting at the nearby table. Tanis looked at Hedrick, whose face was flushed and scowling. The old man appeared not to notice. Paladine is one of the ancient gods, child. No one's worshipped him for a long time. Why did he leave? The little boy asked. He didn't leave us, the old man answered, and his smile grew sad. Men left him after the dark days of the cataclysm. They blamed the destruction of the world on the gods instead of on themselves, as they should have done. You ever heard the Canticle of the Dragon? The author read it in the very first part of the book. Thought it would rhyme a lot more than he remembered, and it didn't. Did I say author, the narrator? The narrator. Oh, yeah, the boy said eagerly. I love stories about dragons, though Papa says dragons never existed. I believe in them, though. I hope to see one someday. The old man's face seemed to age and grow sorrowful. He stroked the young boy's hair. Be careful what you wish for, my boy, he said softly, and then fell silent. Story? The boy prompted. Oh, yes. Well, once upon a time, Paladin heard the prayer of a very great knight, Huma. Huma from the Canticle? Yeah, that's the one. Huma became lost in the forest. He wandered and wandered until he despaired, as he thought he would never see his homeland again. He prayed to Paladin for help, and there suddenly appeared before him a white stag. Did Huma shoot it? The boy asked. He started to, but his heart failed him. He could not shoot an animal so magnificent. The stag bounded away, then stopped and looked back at him, as if waiting. Huma began to follow it. Day and night, he followed the stag and led him to his homeland. He offered thanks to the god Paladin. Blasphemy! Snarled a voice loudly. A chair crashed back. I'm not going to do that. Tanis put down his mug of ale, looking up. Everyone at the table stopped drinking to watch the drunken theocrat. Blasphemy! Hedrick, weaving unsteadily on his feet, pointed at the old man. Heretic! Corrupting our youth! I'll bring you before the council, old man! The seeker fell back a step, then staggered forward again. He looked around the room with a pompous air. Call the guards! He made a grandiose gesture. Have them arrest this man and this woman for singing lewd song. The drunkenness is now apparently the blood rush after standing up, and the drunkenness is hitting. It's by the way, it's slurred in the book with spelling. Chef's kiss. I love it when they do that. Call the guards! He made a grandiose gesture. Have them arrest this man and this woman for singing lewd songs. Obviously a witch. I'll confiscate this staff. The seeker lurched across the floor to the barbarian woman, who was staring at him in disgust. He reached clumsily for her staff. No, the woman called Goldmoon spoke coolly. That is mine. You cannot take it. Which? The seeker sneered. I'm the high theocrat. I take what I want. He started to make another grab for the staff. The woman's tall companion rose to his feet. The chieftain's daughter says you will not take it. The man said harshly. He shoved the seeker backward. The tall man's push was not rough, but it knocked the drunken theocrat completely off balance. His arms flailing wildly, he tried to catch himself. He lurched forward too far, tripped over his official robes, and fell headfirst into the roaring fire. There was a whoosh and a flare of light, then a sickening smell of burning flesh. The theocrats. Do I have a Wilhelm scream? I'll have to put one on my soundboard. I also have a voice modulator I could change for the cast, but I'm having a lot of fun doing it myself. I like doing this myself. Hi, Diadems.
Although, I do have a very mellow narrator voice. Why not? Come on now. You can tell me. I don't suppose my voice sounds familiar, does it?
Hi, Estwild. How you doing? I'm listening in the background, really enjoying it, while the Maddie part, not the modulator. Welcome in, Raiders, Sparkles, Mandy. Hi and howdy. I won't use this as a bookmark because that's the signatures. Those are the autographs. But I do have a bookmark. Let me give you a shout out. Thank you. Welcome in, Raiders. Let's give an exclamation point SO for Sparkles underscore Mandy and a slash shout out to Sparkles underscore Mandy. Now, Mandy, Sparkles, how was your game? What was going on? What was happening in your corner of D&D Twitch? Thank you for coming in. Can I offer you a pistachio? Grim Grixis, hello. Gummy Bear, 4460, howdy. Ginger Chris in with that raid. Sparkles, of course. Oh, look at those. Look at the swarm. The swarm. I love your raid emote. Look at those little critters. Here, Mandy, I'm gonna send these into battle against your guys. Okay. We have the conga rats. Get off McLeod. That reminds me of a joke. I think I could repeat it here. We're after midnight. Um, but yeah, welcome in, Raiders. Good to see ya. No, you're fine, Raven. You're fine. We had some Raiders. Yes, this is the 40th anniversary Dragonlance Chronicles. The first 3 books. But yeah, Sparkles, please tell me what was happening. Or if one of your viewers or players, if they rated over 2, what was going on tonight? Please share. The shout out is a show of appreciation, but I love hearing what other people are doing. I will get back to reading. Um, we're having an escalation of action. A drunken theocrat tried to clumsily grab a one of the characters' items, and a push led to him going into a fireplace. This is not going to bode well. So let's find out what happened, shall we? I am attempting to do all the voices.
Of course, if I need to, I can put on a interval voice. If you like this kind of thing.
I can sound super upbeat happy. Like, totally. This is like one of those barbarian stories that, old people read. Wow, miss me with that.
Hey, another first time chat from a raider. It is cozy story time. Jubal Jubaral? Let me know how to pronounce it. I'll do my best to remember. But yep, I am reading stories. I'm doing the voices. And we're having ourselves a good time on this cold, wintry night, at least here in this part of the Northern Hemisphere. But because I keep very weird hours, there's a lot of you in the Southern Hemisphere that I get to meet as well. All right, his arms flailing wildly. He tried to catch himself. He lurched forward too far, tripped over his official robes, and fell headfirst into the roaring fire. There was a whoosh and a flare of light, then a sickening smell of burning flesh. The theocrat's scream tore through the stunned silence as the crazed man leaped to his feet. Could be leapt, but anyway, leaped to his feet and started whirling around in a frenzy. He had become a living torch. Tanis and the others sat, unable to move, paralyzed with the shock of the incident. Only Tasselhoff had wits enough to run forward, anxious to try and help the man. But the theocrat was screaming and waving his arms, fanning the flames that were consuming his clothes and his body. There seemed no way that the little Kender could help him. Here! The old man grabbed the barbarian's feather decorated staff and handed it to the Kender. Knock him down, then we can smother the fire. Hasselhoff took the staff. He swung it using his strength and hit the theocrat squarely in the chest. The man fell to the ground. There was a gasp from the crowd. Tasselhoff himself stood open mouthed, the staff clutched in his hand, staring down at the amazing sight at his feet. The flames had died instantly. The man's robes were whole, undamaged. His skin was pink and healthy. He sat up, look of fear and awe on his face. He stared down at his hands and his robes. There was not a mark on his skin. There was not the smallest cinder smoking on the robes. It healed him, the old man proclaimed loudly. The staff! Look at the staff! Hasselhoff's eyes went to the staff in his hand. It was made of blue crystal, and it was glowing with a bright blue light. The old man began shouting, Call the guards! Arrest the Kender! Arrest the barbarians! Arrest their friends! I saw them come in with this knight, he pointed at Sturm. What? Tanis leaped up. Are you crazy, old man? Call the guards! The word spread. Did you see? The blue crystal staff? We found it. Now they'll leave us alone. Call the guards! The theocrats, that might have been more general audience and not the old man. The theocrat staggered to his feet, his face pale, blotched with red. The barbarian woman and her companion stood up, fear and alarm in their faces. Foul witch! Hendric's voice shook with rage. You have cured me with evil! Evil? Evil? You have cured me with evil? Even as I burn to purify my flesh, you will burn to purify your soul. With that, the seeker reached out, and before anyone could stop him, he plunged his hand back into the flames. He gagged with pain, but did not cry out. Then, clutching his charred and blackened hand, he turned and staggered off through the murmuring crowd, a wild look of satisfaction on his pain-twisted face. You've got to get out of here, Tika came running over to Tanis, her breath coming in gasps. The whole town's been hunting for that staff. Those hooded men told the theocrat they'd destroy Solace if they caught someone harboring the staff. The town people will run you over to the guards. But it's not our staff, Tanis protested. He glared at the old man and saw him settle back into his chair, a pleased smile on his face. The old man grinned at Tanis and winked. Do you think they'll believe you? Tika wrung her hands. Look! Tanis looked around. People were glaring at them balefully. Some took a firm grip on their mugs. Others eased their hands onto the hilts of their swords. Shouts from down below drew his eye back to his friends. The guards are coming! Exclaimed Tika. Tanis rose. We'll have to go out through the kitchen. Yes, she nodded. They won't look back there yet. But hurry. It won't take them long to surround the place. For any of you who don't know, or you missed it, or it's been a while, the inn of the last home, the current setting, is about 40 feet up in a giant tree. Most everything except the blacksmith shop is up in a tree here in Solace. Years of being apart had not affected the companions' ability to react as a team to threat of danger. Paramon had pulled on his shining helm, drawn his sword, shouldered his pack, and was helping his brother to his feet. Raceland, his staff in hand, was moving around the table. Flint had hold of his battle axe and was frowning darkly at the onlookers, who seemed hesitant about rushing to attack I'm rushing ahead as I'm adjusting for the light. Sorry about that. Frowning darkly at the onlookers, who seemed hesitant about rushing to attack such well-armed men. Only Sturm sat, calmly drinking his ale. Sturm, Hannah said urgently. Come on! We've got to get out of here. Run? Run? Yeah, I like that second one. Run? The knight appeared astonished. From this rabble? Yes, Tanis paused. The knight's code of honor forbade running from danger. He had to convince him. That man is a religious fanatic, Sturm. He'll probably burn us at the stake, and sudden thought rescued him. There is a lady to protect. The lady, of course. Sturm stood up at once and walked over to the woman. Madame, your servant. He bowed. The courtly knight would not be hurried. It seems we're all in this together. Your staff has placed us in considerable danger. You most of all. We are familiar with the area around here. We grew up here. You, I know. Are strangers. We would be honored to accompany you and your gallant friend and guard your lives. Come on, Tika urged. tugging on Tanis's arm. Paramon and Raceland were already at the kitchen door. Get the kender, Tanis told her. Hasselhoff stood, rooted to the floor, staring at the staff. It was rapidly fading back to a nondescript brown color. Tika grabbed Tass by his top knot and pulled him onward to the kitchen. Kender shrieked, dropping the staff. Goldmoon swiftly picked it up, clutching it close to her. Although frightened, her eyes were clear and steady as she looked at Sturm and Tanis. She was apparently thinking rapidly. Her companion said a harsh word in their language. She shook her head. He frowned and made a slashing motion with his hand. She snapped a quick reply. He fell silent, his face dark. We will go with you, Goldmoon said to Sturm in the common tongue. Thank you for the offer. This way! Tanis herded them out through the swinging kitchen doors, following Tika and Tass. He glanced behind him and saw some of the crowd move forward, but in no great hurry. A cook stared at them as they ran through the kitchen. Paramon and Raceland were already at the exit, which was nothing more than a hole cut in the floor. A rope hung from a sturdy limb above the hole and dropped 40 feet to the ground. Ah! Exclaimed Tass, laughing. Here, the ale comes up and the garbage goes down. He swung out onto the rope and shinnied down easily. Sorry about this, Tika apologized to Goldmoon, but it is the only way out of here. I can climb down a rope. Then the woman smiled and added, though I admit it has been many years. She handed her staff to her companion and grasped the stout rope. She began to descend, moving skillfully hand over hand. When she reached the bottom, her companion tossed the staff down, swung on the rope, and dropped through the hole. How are you doing? Are you going to get down, Raced? Paramon asked, his face lined with concern. I can carry you on my back. Raceland's eyes flashed with anger that startled Tanis. I can get down myself, the mage hissed. Before anyone could stop him, he stepped to the edge of the hole and leaped out into the air. Everyone gasped and peered down, expecting to see Raceland splattered all over the ground. Instead, they saw the young mage gently floating down, his robes fluttering around him. The crystal on his staff glowed brightly. He shivers my skin, Flint growled to Tanis. Hurry. Tanis shoved the door forward. Flint grabbed hold of the rope. Caramon followed, the big man's weight causing the limb in the rope. The rope was tied around to creak. I will go last, Sturm said, his sword drawn. Very well. Tanis knew it was useless to argue. He slung the longbow and quiver of arrows over his shoulder, grabbed the rope, and started down. Suddenly, his hand slipped. He slid down the rope, unable to stop it tearing the skin off his palms. He landed on the ground and looked, wincing at his hands. His palms were raw and bleeding, but there was no time to think about them. Glancing up, he watched as Sturm descended. Tika's face appeared in the opening. Go to my house, she mouthed. My house. Pointing through the trees. Then she was gone. I know the way, Hasselhoff said, his eyes glowing with excitement. Follow me. They hurried off after the kender, hearing the sounds of the guards climbing the stairway into the inn. Tanis, unused to walking on the ground in solace, was soon lost. Above him, he could see the bridge walks, the street lamps gleaming among the tree leaves. He was completely disoriented, but Tass kept pushing forward confidently, weaving in and out among the huge trunks of the Valenwood trees. The sounds of the commotion at the inn faded. We'll hide at Tika's for the night, Tanis whispered to Sturm as they plunged through the underbrush, just in case someone recognized us and decides to search our homes. Everyone will have forgotten about about this by morning. We'll take the plainsmen to my home and let them rest a few days. Then we can send the barbarians on to Haven, where the Council of High Seekers can talk with them. Think I might even go along. I'm curious about this staff. Sturm nodded, then looked at Tanis and smiled his rare melancholy smile. Welcome home, the knight said. Same to you, the half elf grinned. They both came to a sudden halt, bumping into Caramon in the dark. We're here, I think, Caramon said. In the light of the street lamps that hung in the tree limbs, they could see Tasselhoff climbing tree branches like a gully dwarf. The rest followed more slowly, Caramon assisting his brother. Tanis, gritting his teeth from the pain in his hands, climbed up slowly through the rapidly thinning autumn foliage. Tass pulled himself up over the porch railing with the skill of a burglar. The Kender slipped over to the door and peered up and down the bridge wall. Seeing no one on it, he motioned to the others. Then he studied the lock and smiled to himself in satisfaction. The Kender slid something out of one of his pouches. Within seconds, the door of Tika's house swung open. Come in, he said, playing host. They crowded inside the little house, the tall barbarian being forced to duck his head to avoid hitting the ceiling. Cass pulled the curtains shut. Sturm found a chair for the lady. The tall barbarian went to stand behind her. Raceland stirred up the fire. Keep watch, Tanis said. Caramon nodded. The warrior had already posted himself at a window, staring out into the darkness. The light from a street lamp gleamed through the curtains into the room, casting dark shadows on the walls. For long moments, no one spoke, each staring at the others. Tanis sat down, his eyes turned to the woman. The blue crystal staff, he said quietly. It healed that man. How? I do not know, she faltered. I haven't had it very long. Tanis looked down at his hands. They were bleeding from where the rope had peeled off his skin. He held them out to her. Slowly, her face pale, the woman touched him with the staff. It began to glow blue. Tanis felt a slight shock tingle through his body. Even as he watched, the blood on his palms vanished. The skin became smooth and unscarred. The pain eased and soon left him completely. True healing. True healing, he said in awe. Look at this, we're already on to part 4. The Open Door, Flight into Darkness. Tell you what, bookmark in. I need to get a little bit more agua, okay? I'm almost out. Give me like 5 minutes. I'm going to stretch, okay? I'm going to stretch. I'm going to replenish. Let's get at least one more part, unless this is a short one. 2 was like a really short, it was like 5 pages. Let's get at least 1, if not 2 more parts read tonight too, okay? I'll be back and we'll continue the narration. I appreciate you all who are coming by to enjoy it. I hope my voices are entertaining and I'm helping to bring you along into the story while you all are doing whatever you're doing out there. I don't ask questions. I'm not judging. I won't. Oh, pardon. All right. So, yeah, I need something to drink. I'll be back in about 5 minutes. Okay, everyone?
Dragons and wizards and dungeons and princesses. Dragons and wizards and princesses and dungeons and castles.
Hello, everyone! It is ready for more! Hello! Hey, welcome in, Raiders! Hello! Are you ready for some more narration?
Also, Jing, oh, I'm sorry, I was up. I was refreshing myself. I have some wonderful oh, all right. Well, apparently it's a potion. It's a potion of invisibility. It's also unsweetened vanilla almond milk. Very good. If any of you are trying to cut carbs or watch carbs, or if you're on keto or you're diabetic and you're looking for something like whatever, right? Or you just want to try something, man, there are tons of zero sugar options you can enjoy. This is tasty. It has a good mouthfeel, and especially if you put some zero sugar coffee creamer in there, it thickens it up and it can add a little boost of flavor. Oh, and if you're watching carb intake for whatever reason, pinky's out, darling. But yeah, I'm sorry I was up. Hey, let's give a shout out to Kobold Jing and a shout out to Kobold Jing. Two, did you? I hope I didn't keep you waiting. Did you just raid in before I got here? Also, oh shoot, I missed a raid from Gaming Zeta Zero as well. Oh my, I was away for everything. Well, that'll teach me to have biological functions. Gosh. Man, I can't wait to be undead. Toozy! Ah! Hi, Toozy! Toozy is also a streamer. Toozy is a varietal streamer, as is Miss Jing. Oh, you're playing some Evolve. Okay. Now, I have in the 40th anniversary of the Dragonlance Chronicles. I am narrating it. I'm doing voices for the characters. Yes, you're welcome. Before we get back to it, as this is halftime, and I'm letting this hashtag not sponsored Sam's Club generic unsweetened vanilla almond milk do its thing. I wanted to show you all some of the new emotes that are coming out and give you a quick reminder on what's happening on our Discord. I was lurking for a while in Jing's stream. A friend let me borrow his Steam account so that I could play Evolve again after forever, it feels like. Is Evolve? There was a game that came out a long time ago. I mean, I'm only in my 20s, so whatever. Called Spore, and it's where you start with just a little like one cell, and you have to like create life, and you can like add on googly eyes or claws, and it'll sort of like grow and develop from there. Is Evolve something like that, where you're a creature creator? You're sort of a life creator kind of a thing. Oh, okay. Well, hey, it sounds like you know what I was talking about, though, Jing, and that makes you extremely cultured. More like Dead by Daylight if it was. Wait a minute. Well, wait. More like Dead by Daylight, or if it was a first person. So someone else is chasing you, because now it sounds familiar. Aren't you on a? You're on a space station with this one, right? And there's like a weird, like a black goo that chases after you. Is that what it is? Are you being chased by goo? Let's show these off. We have 16 emotes that are going to get added in. So we have 2 new ones for Altir, the Griffin. Oh, that's prey. Okay. One giant alien monster eating the wildlife and evolving, growing larger, while 4 hunters try to catch and kill it before it kills them. Okay. All right, Toozy, be well, my friend. Oh, Jing. That also reminded me, what's the one where you play like a cryptozoologist zookeeper, and like got to go tend to the animals, but you're also discovering like a weird mutation. You know what I'm talking about? Have you played that one? So we have Altir the Griffin. We have 2 new ones for Maureni the Dragon. Isn't she adorable? Is Ma Rennie the favorite of any of you out there? What about Biddy? We have Party Biddy. You all have birthdays, I presume. Can Biddy help you celebrate? It's cold. Let's get comfy. Let's get comfy. Oh yeah, make some yummy noms, Jing. What is on the what's on the menu tonight? Are you doing something quick? You know, just some like ramen or I don't know, just look. There are nights when I finish streaming, I go to the fridge, I'll get like 3 slices of provolone, put some mayo on it, put on some sliced turkey, put a little bit of mustard on it, and I eat it as a wrap. And I'm like, it's nice and easy. It's done. I don't need to worry about it. Also, low carb. Eh. The store ghost, our undead orc, who haunts the store, is giving us an oof and a smooch for Squeaker the rat. I love porcine orcs. Classic orc. Carrie Dismith. If you know her well, you could call her Carrie. Carrie here is at a rave. And also kind of cringing. Someone in chat said the thing. Yeah. The Glublin, our very greedy Glublin, wants Gibbs. Gib. And the prize goblin, full of bounty, gives gifts. And hopefully you would accept the prize that she has to offer you. You don't have to be a greedy Glublin. If you've been good and you are a part of the generous spirit of this community, the prize goblin, I'm sure, will visit you one day. Oh, the poor little gobbo. I don't know what happened to make her sad. And lastly, I get my own emote for the second time. Hell yeah. I am not a boomer. I say as I drink like the non-caffeinated equivalent of Monster Zero, Monster Ultra. I'm cool. I'm hip. I'm with it. All right. Learn more about Dragonlance. And one last note for you all. I'm going to bring this up and then we'll get back to the story. We are 2 boosts away from getting a tier 3. If you have a Discord Nitro boost available, I would be honored if you would share one or both with this server. Please and thank you. We're 2 away, and having the tier 3 re-unlocks a lot of stuff for the server, and will make communication through Discord for our upcoming VTM game, and I would like to recruit for a long-form story of some kind. It'll give us better audio and video quality and so forth and so on. If you have the boosts available, give that a click, boost the server. I would sincerely appreciate it. That also makes you a booster and a golden goblin, which means you have access to the Epic Heroes area, which is a little bit more relaxed from the PG-13. Everything else is kept. Now, this is not NSFW. But it is a little bit more, it's the store after dark. It's the lock-in. You have to be you got to be like 16 plus to stay over. And then lastly, the Adopt-a-thon. I need your all's help. I am going down from 2 offices to 1 at the end of this month. I need to get rid of stuff. I am making boxes of minis to ship out to you all, and I'm selling them at less than my cost, including free shipping to US addresses. So, if you can, please, pick up a box or sponsor one and direct me to give it away. We're actually we're $19 away from a community community funded one. And if you look, the community has offered in giveaways has offered 2 boxes, and look at these other shows of generosity by individual community members. So by lurking, by hanging around, you too could win a box of minis. And if you are able to, you want to sponsor one for yourself, or you want to direct me to give one away, then you can feel good for doing that, and you get an entry into the gargantuan pre-painted Tiamat giveaway happening after all 100 boxes go out the door. Each box purchased comes with an entry into a gargantuan pre-painted Tiamat event. This is a miniature pre-painted about the size of a house cat. And one of you all who supports this is going to be winning it once all the boxes go. Gotta make with the big eyes with the please. Which one are you talking about? Are you talking about the like this one? Are you talking about that one, Diadems? Sugar Plum, this one, so the last one was for hitting 4,000 followers. If you look up here, there's another event that does not involve Tiamat happening when we hit 5,000. So if I also earn a follow, hey, let's get to 5,000. I have a big and fun event where someone's going to win a $500 prize package for participating in the event. It's not going to be very complex. You're not going to have to slide down ropes like the group in Dragonlance did to escape the town guards. So, but I need you out there, retweeting or liking, on socials, just not even like super active, but chatting, asking questions, reading along, directing raids over to come and visit the Hero Zone. Every little bit helps. Subscribing, gifting subs, providing bits to cheer into the channel. Every little bit absolutely helps. I appreciate it. And when we hit 5K, I have something really special planned. And I hope that you'll all enjoy it. If you like the last Tiamat event, this one I hope will be even more better. The 4K one, Sugar Plum, was last year. So there was the first Tiamat event, then we had a second, sort of like a revenge, and that had a whole it had 2 animatics and coloring. It had a coloring book event in between the 2 little movies. It was a full storyline that I presented. It was a full adventure. The first one was sort of like, you know what? The mascots got together and they need to stop her from manifesting. Well, now off of that loosey goosey point, a lot more production value went into an event, and it happened. It was a lot of fun. I could show it off in a little bit. It's also over on our Discord, Sugar Plum. If you're on our Discord, !Discord, you'll need the archivist role. That is in the welcome channel. Okay. So over in welcome, you'll need the archivist channel so you can check out the 2024 content archive, and then there's the Tiamat story and you can see the entries, and there's the videos with the movies that were made about it. All right. Anyway, any old who. Have the wiki up. Let's start reading. We're going to get one, maybe two more chapters in, depending on how long they are, okay? So we're going to pick up again. 4. The Open Door. Flight into Darkness. Raceland sat down on the hearth, rubbing his thin hands in the warmth of the small fire. His golden eyes seemed brighter than the flames as he stared intently at the blue crystal staff resting across the woman's lap. "What do you think?" asked Tanis. "If she's a charlatan, she's a good one," Raceland commented thoughtfully. "Worm, you dare to call the chieftain's daughter charlatan?" The tall barbarian stepped toward Raceland, his dark brows contracted in a vicious scowl. Caramon made a low, rumbling sound in his throat and moved from the window to stand behind his brother. "Riverwind?" The woman laid her hand on the man's arm as he drew near her chair. "Please, he meant no harm. He is right that they do not trust us. They do not know us." "And we do not know them," the man growled. "If I might examine it," Raceland said. Goldmoon nodded and held out the staff. The mage stretched out his long, bony arm, his thin hands grasping for it eagerly. As Raceland touched the staff, however, there was a bright flash of blue light and a cracking sound. The mage jerked his hand back, crying out in pain and shock. Caramon jumped forward, but his brother stopped him. "No, Caramon," Raceland whispered hoarsely, wringing his injured hand. "The lady had nothing to do with it." The woman, indeed, was staring at the staff in amazement. "What is it, then?" Tanis asked in exasperation. "A staff that heals and injures at the same time?" "It merely knows its own." Raceland licked his lips, his eyes glittering. "Watch. Caramon, take the staff." "Not me," the warrior drew back as if from a snake. "Take the staff," Raceland demanded. Reluctantly, Caramon stretched out a trembling hand. His arm twitched as his fingers came closer and closer. Closing his eyes and gritting his teeth in anticipation of pain, he touched the staff. Nothing happened. Caramon opened his eyes wide, startled. He gripped the staff, lifted it in his huge hand, and grinned. See there." Raceland gestured like an illusionist, allowing or showing off a trick to the crowd. "Only one of simple goodness, pure in heart." His sarcasm was biting. "May touch the staff. It is truly a sacred staff of healing, blessed by some god. It is not magic. No magic objects that I have ever heard about have healing powers." "Hush!" ordered Tasselhoff, who had taken Caramon's place by the window. "The Theocrat's guards," he warned softly. No one spoke. Now they could all hear goblin footsteps flapping on the bridge walks that ran among the branches of the Valenwood trees. They're conducting a house-to-house search, Tanis whispered incredulously, listening to fists banging on a neighbor's door.
The seekers demand right of entry,
Croaked a voice. There was a pause. Then the same voice said,
No one home. Do we kick it in? Nar,
said another voice.
I'd rather just report to the theocrat. Let him kick the door down. Now, if it was unlocked, that'd be different. They're allowed to enter then.
Tanis looked at the door opposite him. He felt the hair rise on the back of his neck. He could have sworn they had shut and bolted the door. Now it stood slightly open. Door, he whispered. Caramon. But the warrior had already moved over to stand behind the door, his back to the wall, his giant hands flexing. The footsteps flapped to a stop outside.
The seekers demand right of entry.
The goblins began to bang on the door, then stopped in surprise as it swung open.
This place is empty,
One said.
Let's move on. You got no imagination, Grum,
said the other.
There's our chance to pick up a few pieces of silver.
The goblin head appeared around the open door, its eyes focused on Raceland. Sitting calmly, his staff on his shoulder, the goblin grunted in alarm, then began to laugh.
Look what we found! A staff!
The goblin's eyes gleamed, took a step toward Raceland, its partner crowding close behind.
Hand me the staff!
Certainly, the mage whispered. He held his own staff forth. Shirak, he said. The crystal ball flared into light. The goblins shrieked and shut their eyes, fumbling for their words. At that moment, Caramon jumped from behind the door, grabbed the goblins around their necks, and swept their heads together with a sickening thud. The goblin bodies crumpled into a stinking heap. Dead? Asked Tanis, as Caramon bent over them, examining them by the light of Graceland's staff. I'm afraid so, the big man sighed. I hit them too hard. Well, that's torn it, Tanis said grimly. We've murdered 2 more of the Theocrat's guards. They'll have the town up in arms. Now we can't just lie low for a few days. Got to get out of here. And you two, he turned to the barbarians, had better come with us. Wherever we're going, muttered Flint irritably. Wherever we're going, muttered Flint irritably. Where were you headed? Tanis asked Riverwind. We were traveling to Haven, the barbarian answered reluctantly. There are wise men there, Goldmoon said. We hoped they could tell us about the staff. You see, the song I sang, it was true. The staff saved our lives. You'll have to tell us later, Tanis interrupted. When these guards don't report back, every goblin in Solace will be swarming up the trees. Raceland, put out that light. The mage spoke another word. Tumak. Crystal glimmered, and then the light died. What'll we do with the bodies? Caramon asked, nudging a dead goblin with his booted foot. And what about Tika? Won't she get into trouble? Leave the bodies, Tanis's mind was working quickly, and hack up the door. Sturm, knock over a few tables. We'll make it look as if we broke in here and got into a fight with these fellows. That way, Tika shouldn't be in too much trouble. She's a smart girl. She'll manage. We'll need food, Hasselhoff stated. He ran into the kitchen and began rummaging through the shelves. stuffing loaves of bread and anything else that looked edible into his pouches. He tossed Flint a full skin of wine. Sturm overturned a few chairs. Caramon arranged the bodies to make it look as if they had died in a ferocious battle. The plainsmen stood in front of the dying fire, looking at Tanis uncertainly. Well, said Sturm, now what? Where are we going? Tanis hesitated, running over the options in his mind. The plainsmen had come from the east, and if their story was true, and their tribe had been trying to kill them, they wouldn't want to go back that way. The group could travel south into the Elven Kingdom, but Tanis felt a strange reluctance to go back to his homeland. He knew, too, that the elves would not be pleased to see the strangers enter their hidden city. We'll travel north, he said finally. We'll escort these two until we come to the crossroads, and then we could decide what to do from there. They can go on southwest to Haven if they wish. I plan to travel farther north and see if the rumors about armies gathering are true. And perhaps run into Kitiara? Raceland whispered slyly. Tanis flushed. Is that plan all right? He asked, looking around. Though not the eldest among us, Tanis, you are the wisest, Sturm said. We follow you, as always. Caramon nodded. Raceland was already heading for the door. Flint shouldered the wineskin, grumbling. Tanis felt a gentle hand touch his arm. He turned and looked down into the clear blue eyes of the beautiful barbarian. We are grateful, Goldmoon said slowly, as if unused to expressing appreciation. You risk your lives for us, and we are strangers. Tanis smiled and clasped her hand. I am Tanis. The brothers are Caramon and Raceland. The knight is Sturm Brightblade. Flint Fireforge carries the wine, and Tasselhoff Burfoot is our clever locksmith. You are Goldmoon, and he is Riverwind. There, we are strangers no longer. Goldmoon smiled wearily. She patted Tanis's arm, then started out the door, leaning on the staff that once again seemed plain and nondescript. Tanis watched her, then glanced up to see Riverwind staring at him, the barbarian's dark face an impenetrable mask. Well, Tanis amended silently, some of us are no longer strangers. Soon everyone had gone, Tass leading the way. Tanis stood alone for a moment, in the wrecked living room, staring at the bodies of the goblins. This was supposed to have been a peaceful homecoming after bitter years of solitary travel. He thought of his comfortable house, thought of all the things he had planned to do, things he had planned to do together with Kitiara. He thought of long winter nights with storytelling around the fire at the inn, then returning home laughing together beneath the fur blankets, sleeping through the snow-covered mornings. Tanis kicked at the smoldering coals, scattering them. Kitiara had not come back. Goblins had invaded his quiet town. He was fleeing into the night to escape a bunch of religious fanatics. With every likelihood, he could never return. Elves do not notice the passage of time. They live for hundreds of years. For them, the seasons pass like brief rain showers. But Tanis was half human. He sensed change coming, felt the disquieting restlessness men felt before a thunderstorm. He sighed and shook his head. Then he went out to the shattered door, leaving it swinging crazily on one hinge. Oh yeah, we can get at least one more part in. Now look. Oh, look at the art. I love it. You like it. You love it. You need it. Tanis swung over the porch and dropped down through the tree limbs to the ground below. The others waited, huddled in the darkness, keeping out of the light cast by the street lamp swinging in the branches above them. A chill wind had sprung up, blowing out of the north. Tanis glanced behind him and saw other lights, lights of the search party. He pulled his hood over his head and hurried forward. Wind switched, he said. There'll be rain by morning. He looked around at the small group, seeing them in the eerie, wildly dancing lights of the wind-tossed lamps. Goldmoon's face was scarred with weariness. Riverwind's was a stoic mask of strength, but his shoulders sagged. Raceland, shivering, leaned against a tree, wheezing for breath. Tanis hunched his shoulders against the wind. We've got to find shelter, he said, some place to rest. Tanis, Tess tugged on the half-elf's cloak. We could go by boat. Crystalmere Lake is only a short way. There are caves on the other side, and it will cut walking time tomorrow. That's a good idea, Tess, but we don't have a boat. No problem, the Kender grinned. His small face and sharply pointed ears made him look particularly impish in the eerie light. Tass is enjoying all of this immensely, he realized. He felt like shaking the Kender, lecturing him sternly on how much danger they were in. But the half-elf knew it was useless. Kenders are totally immune to fear. The boat's a good idea, Tanis repeated, after a moment's thought. You guide and don't tell Flint, he nodded. I'll take care of that. Right, Tanis giggled. Or not Tanis. Tanis giggled. Right, Tass giggled. Then slipped back to the others. Follow me, he called out softly, and he started off once more. Flint, grumbling into his beard, stumped after the Kender. Goldmoon followed the dwarf. Riverwind cast a quick, penetrating glance around at everyone in the group, then fell into step behind her. I don't think he trusts us, Caramon observed. Would you? Tanis asked, glancing at the big man. Caramon's dragon helm glinted in the flickering lights. His ringmail armor was visible whenever the wind blew his cape back. A longsword clanked against his thick thighs. A short bow and a quiver of arrows were slung over his shoulder. A dagger protruded from his belt. His shield was battered and dented from many fights. The giant was ready for anything. Tanis looked over at Sturm, who proudly wore the coat of arms of knighthood that had fallen into disgrace 300 years before. Although Sturm was only 4 years older than Caramon, the knight's strict, disciplined life, hardships brought on by poverty, and his melancholy search for his beloved father had aged the knight beyond his years. Only 29, he looked 40. Sturm. I know what you mean by that. All right. Tanis thought. Right. Only 29, he looked 40. Tanis thought, I don't think I'd trust us either. What's the plan? Sturm asked. We're going by boat, Tanis answered. Oh-ho! Caramon chuckled. Told Flint yet? No, leave that to me. Where are we getting a boat? Sturm asked suspiciously. You'll be happier not knowing, the half-elf said. The knight frowned. His eyes followed the Kender, who was far ahead of them, flitting from one shadow to another. I don't like this, Tanis. First we're murderers, now we're about to become thieves. I don't consider myself a murderer, Caramon snorted. Goblins don't count. Tanis saw the knight glare at Caramon. I don't like any of this, Sturm, he said hastily, hoping to avoid an argument. But it's a matter of necessity. Look at the plainsmen. Pride's the only thing keeping them on their feet. Look at Raceland. Their eyes went to the mage, who was shuffling through the dry leaves, keeping always in the shadows. He leaned heavily upon his staff. Occasionally, a dry cough racked his frail body. Caramon's face darkened. Tennis is right, he said softly. The rest can't take much more of this. I must go to him. Leaving the knight and the half elf, he hurried forward to catch up with the robed, bent figure of his twin. Let me help you, Raist, they heard Caramon whisper. Raceland shook his hooded head and flinched away from his brother's touch. Caramon shrugged and dropped his arm, but the big warrior stayed close to his frail brother, ready to help him if necessary. Why does he put up with that? Tanis asked softly. Family. Ties of blood. Sturm sounded wistful. He seemed about to say more when his eyes went to Tanis's elven face with the growth of human hair, and he fell silent. Tanis saw the look, knew what the knight was thinking. Family, ties of blood, were things the orphaned half-elf wouldn't know about. Come on, Tanis said abruptly. We're dropping behind. They soon left the Valenwood trees of Solace and entered the pine forest surrounding Crystalmere Lake. Tanis could faintly hear muffled shouts far behind them. They found the bodies, he guessed. Sturm nodded gloomily. Suddenly, Tasselhoff seemed to materialize out of the darkness right beneath the half-elf's nose. The trail runs a little over a mile to the lake, Tass said. I'll meet you where it comes out. He gestured vaguely, then disappeared before Tanis could say a word. The half-elf looked back at Solace. There seemed to be more lights. They were moving in this direction. The roads were probably already blocked. Where's the Kender? Flint grumbled as they plunged through the forest. Tass is meeting us at the lake, Tanis replied. Lake? Flint's eyes grew wide in alarm. What lake? There's only one lake around here, Flint, Tanis said, trying hard not to smile at Sturm. Come on, we better keep going. His elven sight showed him the broad red outline of Caramon and the slighter red shape of his brother disappearing into the thick woods ahead. I thought we were just going to lie low in the woods for a while. Flint shoved his way past Sturm to complain to Tanis. We're going by boat, Tanis moved forward. Nope, Flint growled. I'm not getting in any boat. That accident happened 10 years ago, Tanis said, exasperated. Look, I'll make Caramon sit still. Absolutely not, the dwarf said flatly. No boats. I took a vow. Tanis, Sturm's voice whispered behind him. Lights. Tanis. I'm working it out. Tanis. Accentuated mouth movement. Tanis. Lights. Blast. The half-elf stopped and turned. He had to wait a moment before catching sight of lights glittering through the trees. The search had spread beyond Solace. He hurried to catch up with Caramon, Raceland, and the plainsmen. Lights, he called out in a piercing whisper. Caramon looked back and swore. Riverwind raised his hand in acknowledgement. I'm afraid we're going to have to move faster, Caramon, Tanis began. We'll make it, the big man said, unperturbed. He was supporting his brother now, his arm around Raceland's thin body, practically carrying him. Raceland coughed softly, but he was moving. Sturm caught up with Tanis. As they forced their way through the brush, they could hear Flint puffing along behind, muttering angrily to himself. He won't come, Tanis, Sturm said. Flint's been in mortal fear of boats ever since Caramon almost accidentally drowned him that time. You weren't there. You didn't see him after we hauled him out. He'll come, Tanis said, breathing hard. He can't let us youngsters go off into danger without him. Sturm shook his head, unconvinced. Tanis looked back again. He saw no lights, but he knew they were too deep in the forest now to see them. Viewmaster Toad may not have impressed anybody with his brains, but it wouldn't take much intelligence to figure out that the group might take to the water. Tanis stopped abruptly to keep from bumping into someone. "What is it?" he whispered. "We're here," Caramon answered. Tanis breathed a sigh of relief as he stared out across the dark expanse of Crystalmere Lake. The wind whipped the water into frothy whitecaps. "Where's Tass?" He kept his voice low. "There, I think." Caramon pointed at a dark object floating close to shore. Tanis could barely make out the warm red outline of the Kender sitting in a large boat. The stars gleamed with icy brightness in the blue-black sky. The red moon, Lunitari, was rising like a bloody fingernail from the water. Its partner in the night sky, Solinari, had already risen, marking the lake with molten silver. "What wonderful targets we're going to make," Sturm said irritably. Tanis could see Tasselhoff turning this way and that, searching for them. The half-elf reached down, fumbling for a rock in the darkness, and finding one, he lobbed it into the water. It splashed just a few yards ahead of the boat. Tass, reacting to Tanis' signal, propelled the boat to shore. You're gonna put all of us in one boat?" Flint said in horror. "You're mad, half-elf!" "It's a big boat," Tanis said. "No, I won't go. If it were one of the legendary white-winged boats of Tarsus, I still wouldn't go. I'd rather take my chances with the Theocrat." Tanis ignored the fuming dwarf and motioned to Sturm. "Get everyone loaded up. We'll be along in a moment." "Don't take too long," Sturm warned. "Listen." "I can hear," Tanis said grimly. "Go on." "What are those sounds?" Goldmoon asked the knight as he came up to her. "Goblin search parties," Sturm answered. "Those whistles keep them in contact when they're separated. They're moving in the woods now." Goldmoon nodded in understanding. She spoke a few words to Riverwind in their own language. Apparently continuing a conversation Sturm had interrupted. The big plainsman frowned and gestured back toward the forest with his hand. He was trying to convince her to split with us, Sturm realized. Maybe he's got enough woods lore to hide from goblin search parties for days, but I doubt it. "Riverwind! Guelando!" Goldmoon said sharply. Sturm saw Riverwind scowl in anger. Without a word, he turned and stalked toward the boat. Goldmoon sighed and looked after him, deep sorrow in her face. "Anything I can do to help, lady?" Sturm asked gently. "No," she replied. Then she said sadly, as if to herself, "He rules my heart, but I am his ruler. Once when we were young, we thought we could forget that. But I have been chieftain's daughter too long." "Why doesn't he trust us?" Sturm asked. "He has all the prejudices of our people," Goldmoon replied. "The plainsmen do not trust those who are not human." She glanced back. "Tanis cannot hide his elven blood beneath a beard. Then there are the dwarf, Ender." "Then what of you, lady?" Sturm asked. "Why do you trust us? Don't you have these same prejudices?" Got to work on my. I know what I'm going for with Sturm. I got to practice it. Maybe I'll practice it in the car. Gold Moon turned to face him. He could see her eyes, dark and shimmering as the lake behind her. When I was a girl, she said in her deep, low voice, I was a princess of my people. I was a priestess. They worshipped me as a goddess. I believed it. I adored it. Then something happened. She fell silent, her eyes filled with memories. What was that? Sturm prompted softly. I fell in love with a shepherd, Gold Moon answered, looking at Riverwind. She sighed and walked toward the boat. Sturm watched Riverwind wade into the water to drag the boat closer to shore as Raceland and Caramon reached the water's edge. Raceland clutched his robes around him, shivering.
I can't get my feet wet,
He whispered hoarsely. Caramon did not reply. He simply put his huge arms around his brother, lifted him as easily as he would have lifted a child, and set Raceland in the boat. The mage huddled in the aft part of the boat, not saying a word of thanks. They'll hold her steady, Caramon told Riverwind. You get in. Riverwind hesitated a moment, then climbed quickly over the side. Caramon helped Gold Moon into the boat. Riverwind caught hold of her and steadied her as the boat rocked gently. The plainsmen moved to sit in the stern, behind Tasselhoff. Caramon turned to Sturm as the night drew near. What's happening back there? Flint says he'll burn before he gets in the boat. At least when he'll die. At least he'll die warm instead of wet and cold. Okay, that was Sturm, right? Okay, yeah, Caramon turned to Sturm as the night drew near. They'll go up and haul him down here, Caramon said. You'd only make things worse. You were the only one who nearly drowned him, remember? Let Tanis handle it. He's the diplomat. Caramon nodded. Both men stood, waiting in silence. Sturm saw Gold Moon look at Riverwind in mute appeal, but the plainsman did not heed her glance. Tasselhoff, fidgeting on his seat, started to call out a shrill question, but a stern look from the knight silenced him. Raceland huddled in his robes, trying to suppress an uncontrollable cough. I'm going up there, Stern said finally. Those whistles are getting closer. We don't dare take any more time. But at that moment, he saw Tanis shake hands with the dwarf and begin to run toward the boat alone. Flint stayed where he was, near the edge of the woods. Sturm shook his head. I told Tanis the dwarf wouldn't come. Stubborn as a dwarf, as so the saying goes, Caramon grunted. And that one's had 148 years to grow stubborner. The big man shook his head sadly. Well, we'll miss him, that's for certain. He saved my life more than once. Let me go get him. One punch to the jaw, and he won't know whether he's in a boat or his own bed. Tanis ran up, panting, and heard the last moment. No, Caramon. Flint would never forgive us. Don't worry about him. He's going back to the hills. Get in the boat. There are more lights coming this way. We left a trail through the forest a blind gully dwarf could follow. No sense in all of us getting wet, Caramon said, holding the side of the boat. You and Stern get in. I'll shove off. Sturm was already over the side. Tanis patted Caramon on the back, then climbed in. The warrior pushed the boat out into the lake. He was up to his knees in water when they heard a call from the shore. Hold it! It was Flint, running down from the trees, a vague moving shape of blackness against the moonlit shore. Hang on! I'm coming! Stop, Tanis cried. Caramon, wait for Flint. Look! Sturm half rose, pointing. Lights had appeared in the trees, smoking torches held by goblin guards. Goblins, Flint! Tanis yelled. Behind you, run! The dwarf, never questioning, put his head down and pumped for the shore. One hand on his helm to keep it from flying off. I'll cover him, Tanis said, unslinging his bow. With his elven sight, he was the only one who could see the goblins behind the torches. Fitting an arrow to his bow, Tanis stood as Caramon held the big boat steady. Tanis fired at the outline of the lead goblin. The arrow struck it in the chest, and it pitched forward on its face. The other goblins slowed slightly, reaching for their own bows. Tanis fitted another arrow to his bow as Flint reached the shoreline. Wait! I'm coming! The dwarf gasped, and as he plunged into the water and sank like a rock. Grab him! Sturm yelled. Tass, row back! There he is, see? The bubbles! Caramon was splashing fanatically in the water, hunting for the dwarf. He tried to row back, but the weight of the boat was too much for the kender. Tanis fired again, missed his mark, and swore beneath his breath. He reached for another arrow. The goblins were swarming down the hillside. They've got him! Caramon shouted, pulling the dripping, spluttering dwarf out by the collar of his leather tunic. Quit struggling, he told Flint, whose arms were flailing out in all directions. But the dwarf was in a complete state of panic. A goblin arrow thunked into Caramon's chainmail and stuck there like a scrawny feather. That does it! The warrior grunted in exasperation, and with a great heave of his muscular arms, he pitched the dwarf in. He pitched the dwarf into the boat as it moved out away from him. Flint caught hold of a seat and held on, his lower half sticking out over the edge. Sturm grabbed him by the belt and dragged him aboard the boat as the boat rocked alarmingly. Tanis nearly lost his balance and was forced to drop his bow and catch hold of the side to keep from being thrown into the water. A goblin arrow stuck into the gunwale and barely missing Tanis's hand. Row back to Caramon, Tass, Tanis yelled. I can't, shouted the struggling kender. One swipe of an out-of-control oar nearly knocked Sturm overboard. The knight yanked the kender from his seat. He grabbed the oars and smoothly brought the boat around to where Caramon could get hold of the side. Tanis helped the warrior climb in, then yelled to Sturm. Pull! The knight pulled on the oars with all his strength, leaning over backward as he thrust the oars deep into the water. The boat shot away from shore, accompanied by the howls of angry goblins. More arrows whizzed around the boat as Caramon, dripping wet, plopped down next to Tanis. Goblin target practice tonight? Caramon muttered, pulling the arrow from his mail shirt. We shot beautifully against the water. Tanis was fumbling for his dropped bow when he noticed Raceland sitting up. Take cover, Tanis warned, and Caramon started to reach for his brother. But the mage, scowling at both of them, slipped his hand into a pouch on his belt. His delicate fingers drew out a handful of something as an arrow struck the seat next to him. Raceland did not react. Tanis started to pull the mage down, then realized he was lost in the concentration necessary to a magic user casting a spell. Disturbing him now might have drastic consequences, causing the mage to forget the spell, or worse, to miscast the spell. Tanis gritted his teeth and watched. Raceland lifted his thin, frail hand and allowed the spell component he had taken from his pouch to fall slowly from between his fingers onto the deck of the boat. Sand, Tanis realized. Hast Tassarak, Signurelan Kirali, Krinawi, Ast, Tasarak, Sinuralan, Krinali. I keep putting an L. Krinal, Krinawi, Krinawi, Ast, Tasarak, Sinuralan, Krinawi. There we go. Raceland murmured, and then moved his right hand slowly in an arc parallel to the shore. Tanis looked back toward land. One by one, the goblins dropped their bows and toppled over, as though Raceland were touching each in turn. The arrows ceased. Goblins farther away howled in rage and ran forward. But by that time, Sturm's powerful strokes had carried the boat out of range. Good work, little brother, Paramon said heartily. Raceland blinked and seemed to return to the world. Then the mage sank forward. Paramon caught him and held him for a moment. Then Raceland sat up and sucked in a deep breath, which caused him to cough. I'll be all right, he whispered, withdrawing from Caramon. What did you do to them? Asked Tanis, as he searched for enemy arrows to drop them overboard. Goblins occasionally poisoned their arrow tips. I put them to sleep, Raceland hissed through his teeth that clicked together with the cold. And now I must rest. He sank back against the side of the boat. Tanis looked at the mage. Raceland had indeed gained in power and skill. I wish I could trust him, the half-elf thought. The boat moved across the star-filled lake. The only sounds to be heard were the soft rhythmic splashing of the oars in the water and Raceland's dry, racking cough. Hasselhoff uncorked the wineskin which Flint had somehow retained on his wild dash, and tried to get the chilled, shivering dwarf to swallow a mouthful. But Flint, crouched at the bottom of the boat, could only shudder and stare out across the water. Goldmoon sank deeper into her fur cape. She wore the soft doe-skin breeches of her people with a fringed overskirt and belted tunic. Her boots were made of soft leather. Water had sloshed over the edge of the boat when Caramon had thrown Flint aboard. The water made the doe-skin cling to her, and soon she was chilled and shivering. Take my cape, Riverwind said in their language, starting to remove his bearskin cloak. No, she shook her head. You have been suffering from the fever. I never get sick, you know that. But she looked up at him and smiled. You may put your arm around me, warrior. Heat from our bodies will warm us both. Is that a royal command, chieftain's daughter? Riverwind whispered teasingly, drawing her close to him. It is, she said, leaning against his strong body with a sigh of contentment. She looked up into the starry heavens, then stiffened and caught her breath in alarm. What is it? Riverwind asked, staring up. The others in the boat, although they had not understood the exchange, heard Goldmoon's gasp and saw her eyes transfixed by something in the night sky. Paramon poked his brother and said, Raced, what is it? I don't see anything. Raceland sat up, cast back his hood, then coughed. When the spasm passed, he searched the night sky. Then he stiffened, and his eyes widened. Reaching out with his thin, bony hand, Raceland clutched Tanis's arm, holding on to it tightly as the half-elf involuntarily tried to pull away from the mage's skeletal grip. Tanis! Raceland wheezed, his breath nearly gone. The constellations. What? Tanis was truly startled by the pallor of the mage's metallic gold skin and the feverish luster of his strange eyes. What about the constellations? Gone! rasped Raceland, and lapsed into a fit of coughing. Caramon put his arm around him, holding him close, almost as if the big man were trying to hold his brother's frail body together. Raceland recovered, wiped his mouth with his hand. Tannis saw that his fingers were dark with blood. Raceland took a deep breath, then spoke. Constellation, known as the Queen of Darkness, and the one called Valiant Warrior. Both gone. She has come to Kryn, Tannis, and he has come to fight her. All the evil rumors we have heard are true. War, death, destruction. His voice died in another fit of coughing. Caramon held him. Come on, Race, he said soothingly. Don't get so worked up. It's only a bunch of stars. Only a bunch of stars, Tannis repeated flatly. Stern began to row again, pulling swiftly for the opposite bank. And they all lived happily ever after. No, that's not how it goes. There's plenty more, but that did finish the section. Because if you look, Night in a Cave, Dissension, Tannis decides. All right, this is what we're going to do, everyone. This is what we're going to do. We are going to go from one adventure to another. We went over to say hi to him while he was playing Kingdom Come Deliverance, but now he's playing Dungeons and Dragons with a group of fellow streamers and friends. Some of them you may know about and remember. So we're going to go raid into Batty once more. Who is playing quite a beefy barbarian who was on the brink of death more than once over the course of this story. So let's stop in and see and listen how things are going to this cast of
whatever the hell Robert just did. Knowing that I was playing with Sergey.
Yep, so we're gonna go over and say hi. More reading tomorrow. Let's have fun. I hope you've been enjoying it, the voices and everything else. If you need me, I'll be around a little bit. I'll still be vertical for a bit tonight, and then I'll get horizontal. I'll see you over in Batty's channel.
Here we are. Here we are. Bravo. Jesus Christ.
Sorry, I only know Erebos.